Little cheeky cheek. We have been seeing this a little more recently, and what tends to happen here is that you go for a little more of an aggressive Reaper, then you go for another follow-up aggression with maybe some Cyclones, and then you continue following up with more aggression, perhaps even with a 2-base attack. However, things might already be turning a little sour for Oliveira as the Overlord of Serral is headed towards the right direction. Now, I do want to be clear, this isn't like scouting a 2-racks or a 3-racks in which now, maybe you can play drones and get that nipped in the bud. This wanted to be unscouted, 100%. But it doesn't necessarily depend on being unscouted to still do its job, which is to have that closer aggression with the Reaper.
Yeah, and of course, because it is just that 1 racks, he's going to be able to get the factory behind it. He's going to be able to still get a command center, which he will drop on the low ground. So it is going to be up to this Reaper to make sure no lings slip out onto the map, because that could be a problem. He's not going to be able to easily get a Marine back home, but Oliveira, he's a confident player. And of course, because the barracks is so far forward, it will be a very short rush distance to get across.
Yeah, absolutely. Even going to add a bunker to complicate matters. Serral's basically forced to take care of this. So while a couple of things across the map would completely stop the momentum of Oliveira, the very tiny momentum, but still, I mean, it's something that Serral can't necessarily do, as he literally has his choke in the natural blocked off. So he's going to go for the SCV, try and get that taken care of, and if a couple of lings go across, well, the Reaper would chase him down too fast to really be worth it. So the bunker will probably not finish here. At the time, that would be worth it, is perhaps the best way to put it, as that SCV is just skedaddling.
Yes, that SCV is skedaddling, and Serral, he is going for a very un-old Serral type of thing.
Yes.
This is new Serral through and through. A ton of lings on the production tab. The baneling nest, he is staying killer instinct. And what is Oliveira going to have to deal with this? Not a whole hell of a lot. Yeah.
3CC is going to have a bunch of SCVs to throw at banelings, man.
Yeah.
The old Zach Brannigan strategy.
It's simple. We just throw waves and waves of our own men at the Terran player, at the Zerg banelings until they, well, until we're dead.
Yeah, until you're dead,
Because that's not how that works. The Zerglings, they're just going to keep chewing them up. This looks so bad for Oliveira.
And he 100% was defaulting to Serral not doing a strategy like this. Because like I said, if you do this, and so many other Zergs would be like, oh, I found you, scoff, let's play a macro game. They wouldn't punish the follow-up, and it actually would be kind of like, well, I don't care if you scouted. But this is catastrophic. Oliveira needs to realize what's going down here as they fight for control over the Xel'Naga. But even if Oliveira figures out what Serral is doing, what does he have? He's going to have 2 Hellions that maybe are microed a bit better, but then at the end of the day, the banelings bust on through, and 2 Hellions isn't usually enough to actually get this defense started. 4 is usually the magic number.
And the other thing is, it's usually only 5 banelings, but 5 banelings are going to blow through. He doesn't even need the last one. And now, part of what makes those Hellions good is the ability to pull SCVs, but you can't do that against the banelings. They're coming in here. They're all stacked up. Hellions will be able to avoid this round for now, but this is already a ton of damage. Serral getting a huge start in game number 1.
Excellent maneuver. This is exactly what you should do. Of course, as soon as you try it at home, it'll go terribly, but Serral knew exactly what was going to punish the follow-up, and Oliveira now is down to 5 SCVs. Now, it's only against 23 drones, which for a Zerg doesn't sound very impressive at all, but, comparatively, this is difficult. Oliveira might have triple mule. Actually, he only has double, I think. He didn't get the 3rd orbital yet. But Serral has time, of which he's not really under pressure. Queens will take care of the few Hellions on the ground and the Liberator in the sky. So unless Serral really starts to mess up on his micro, then he's fine, and he's got that run-by potential.
People love to compare Maru, Serral, Rogue, and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to feed that fire right now. That is something that Rogue would have done.
Pretty sure that the Rogue goat sayers are actually, they think they're really cool. They're kind of like the hipsters, actually.
Yeah.
They'll be like, Serral versus Maru, and then that one guy would be like, but Rogue. Which I actually think he should be in goat contention.
I think so too.
But just kind of a, hey, I'm going to call it a hipster response. But that was the drastic difference of, I guess, if we're talking about the quality of games and how one-sided it would look, Rogue wins out, I think, compared to the rest of them. He has the most one-sided series in which he is victor.
Yeah, but that's not fair. Rogue can literally invade people's brains. I don't know how he does it, but he gets inside, sees what they're going to do, and then says, oh, okay, yeah, I know how to counter that.
Yeah, exactly. And then for The other guys like Amaro or Serral, they have a couple of their really one-sided events, affairs, but then it was maybe one-sided in a 4CC versus 6-hatch game or something, you know, where it's like, well,
Yes.
the one guy was definitely winning the entire time, but it went on for a while. Rogue just immediately went for the throat. Just cut the head right off.
Yeah, he's like, I got Maple Story to play tonight. I can't spend more than 20 minutes on this finals. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Serral has actually found the same. You know, he's playing Maple Story later tonight. He's got to get this over with.
Yeah.
So that is the secret, guys, apparently, playing some gacha games. But we have ourselves a little build here that's not going to be immediately countered. Oliveira has gone 3CC Hellion into Banshee by the looks of things. Very stock standard for the matchup. And Serral is going to be going for the default, just Ling Queen, get your drones out, and we'll be seeing maybe some variation from him soon, as he also will be trying to get the scout in that Overlord that he basically places in this position every single time, but maybe sometimes a little more to the natural and a little more to the main.
Yeah, and we saw Beyond trying to abuse that by putting the barracks super far in towards the natural expansion, and he was able to keep it hidden, and that was the map that he won. So good job from Beyond there. Serral, this is kind of cute. We see the fake interference matrix. Oliveira kept it going just in case Serral rechecked. I like that.
Yeah, he did. That was really nice touch there. I mean the fake cloak, right?
Yeah, the fake cloak, exactly. Sorry. It was real interference matrix, fake cloak. Come on down to real fake doors.
Yeah, exactly. So you do have a Banshee, but it's not going to be cloak. It's not going to be invested into. And this is actually, you know, Oliveira talked at length about his variations of his TVZ versus Raynor. And, you know, part of it was real big brain strategy talk, absolutely. And part of it was intentionally trying to offset Raynor's play style. So now he's got to hopefully have that homework done versus Serral. But it did include a Banshee that was cloakless, and I believe he only got one. I think he talked about how it gives him a nice tank time, and we'll be seeing the same thing here. That one Banshee is still going to require some sort of response from Serral as far as moving your units, but then otherwise it might only be used to cover an avenue of attack, which is also very useful, but you haven't dedicated to that extra gas of the second cloak, Banshee as well as cloak. So I mean, I'm just saying that I like that Oliveira was able to do that breakdown, because now we get to see a little bit more of his prep going into a best of 5 TVZ. As Banshee, as I said, does require a response. You can't just let it cancel before his base.
Yeah, and it already got value basically by forcing out those 3 Spore Crawlers. Serral can't know that it's fake cloak unless he, you know, somehow keeps the Overlord alive or slips a Ling in or does one of the things that, to be honest, Serral is fantastic at, the re-scouts.
Yeah.
But when it looks so standard, sometimes you just kind of take it at face value, and yeah, I would say that's a small little win for Oliveira. Cope.
A little bit. But now we've talked a lot about Serral's scouts, or lacking of, because it was a bit of a fake for it. Serral is going into roaches.
Yes.
He has thus far only shown Lings. I'm not sure if the roaches just showed themselves, the Hellions. But he's not really trying to hide them either. There are attempts to hide roaches as you go for a 1-1 roam roach all in, like Ling, ha, just getting its roaches. That isn't what Serral's doing. Nonetheless, it can trip up a Terran player who, you know, was expecting one tempo of a game and is now expecting another. In this case, Roach, with the Infestation Pit on the way, going to be going up into that hive, given the opportunity, which 3CC, I believe Serral will go ahead and go for it. And then if he does find an opportunity, because he kills the Banshee, easy peasy, to get enough roaches and get some type of attack going, he will do it. But, you know, that's not necessarily his goal, as he is now getting units to prepare for Oliveira's first move out.
Yeah, no, it certainly is not his goal here, but I mean, if the classic thing, I was going for the macro game and then I accidentally won. Like,
yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen here, specifically because we do have that tank production that you talked about earlier on, and I think that is absolutely going to help. But Combat Shields is not going to be done. 1-1 will be done here for Oliveira very shortly, but that Combat Shields is not done to protect the third base. However, Oliveira has got a pretty good defensive setup, and Serral, while he's already started the hive, baneling nest, and he is going to be transitioning into the next stage.
Yeah, a little more awkward for the Terran if they only had Widow Mines right there, which some players, you know, they skip those, you know, safety tanks or sometimes turn into a push, but still things that are actually better against roaches, right? But as Oliveira wasn't even actually going for a push, like a push as in bringing everything that he had, wasn't doing that. So that would have also been that catastrophic result of not realizing the actual army that your opponent had if you thought that you were the only one who could get on the map and push, and actually Serral was ready to tango there, give him the opportunity. But now it's really just decided to be a macro game. You know, Oliveira did not go for a 2-base attack like maybe he will eventually in this series. We will see. Like Desk was alluding to, like Beyond showed could be a victory path against Serral. He is going for the macro game. 4th CC heading on over as he does also get his push started as his 1-1 finished. No Ravagers available, but Roach is on the backside, not seeing a couple of Ravagers. Will grab a tank, I believe, so that is very important. But Oliveira has already moved quite forward into Serral's territory.
Yeah, and he's going to be able to pick off a lot of creep, gets quite a few queens. This will be a problem. The Ravager is able to finish off that second tank, so that's nice for Serral. But even this next base is kind of under duress. Bane speed not done for a little while. Serral going to try and take a skirmish, but okay, he at least gets the tank. Still, this is a lot of Marines right here, and there's still Hellbats to tank.
Yeah, that's actually not a lot of banelings left over, Steadfast, as the last few go down. Serral's drones have also fallen. The Queens are trying to make the stand for the Ravagers as a Liberator siege up and destroyed Serral's natural mineral line, and Oliveira is pushing through. He sees the opportunity, grabs the Ravagers, and will be forced back, but that was absolutely 100% not the defense that Serral was looking for from the get-go. He didn't even cancel his 5th.
No, he didn't cancel the 5th. He didn't really get himself in position. He came for kind of an awkward flank. The Corrosive Biles had an opportunity to get 2 tanks initially, weren't able to get them, and then he wasn't expecting the double-prong Liberator harass. It's not just about the drones. That also denied a crap ton of mining for Serral. Oliveira is in a fantastic position in the first macro game between these two.
Yeah, and you know, it was almost the opposite of what we thought you're saying would go for, right? It was like I wanted to go to the macro game, but then I killed the guy. You know, his 4th CC was on the way. His 2-2 had started. I don't think he was necessarily expecting that to win the game, but certainly if it had just killed the 5th, that already would have been a great gain. Instead, it kills the 5th straight up, no cancel, and it gets a lot of damage done on the 4th. Economy as well as the Ravager Roach count. Now Serral does still have 4 base 72 drones and has already rebuilt a lot of that army, but it's still not that impressive to see his Zerg player down 20 supply against the Terran. The technology is working for Serral now as he's got some Vipers, he's got upgrades on the way, but we're actually kind of seeing a repeat a little bit on hard lead where Serral is on the back foot against a Terran that is now going to be relentlessly pushing.
Absolutely, and oh, a little bit of a split forward into the banelings. Does eat a big baneling shot to the face, but there's still a lot of siege tanks here. There's only 1 Viper for Serral. Where is it? Does it have enough energy to be impactful in this fight? Wow, okay. Serral, he's just going to give up the base. He says, no, I don't have enough here. I don't have the tech. I don't have the army. Oliveira is in a fantastic position, but the counterattack on the other side of the map, that's a lot of lanes. Will Serral be able to get the counter damage? No, the Widowmine deals with it. However, Oliveira actually didn't finish off that base. That's a big mistake right there and a huge missed opportunity.
I don't blame him thinking that was going to be a bit more of a run by, actually. There was a lot more behind it, and then Serral decided not to as the reinforcements were, you know, basically on the edge of being enough. But Oliveira takes this opportunity to at least readjust his path. He's still being aggressive. He's still going for the attack, and Serral is working a lot off of creep. A Blinding Cloud comes down on 2 tanks, but the Banelings come in on top of the Marines. Off of creep, the split is decent for Oliveira, but with the Roach Ravager still alive and coming in, it looks like the Terran will be pushed back at the same time. Finally, the Lings of Serral get on top of that 3rd.
Yes, they do, and that's going to be quite disruptive. Oliveira will still be able to stabilize. He's still in a decent position, but the wind was just completely taken out of his sails. Now, he has gutted a lot of his opponent's creep, and something I noticed just recently for a little bit, Serral was on 0 queens. He just rebuilt 2 about a minute ago.
Wow.
There is going to be no creep spread aside from the active tumors, basically. Even though that last little bit went well for Serral, he is by no means out of the woods.
No, absolutely not. Larva is also going to be an issue as he has moved more over into Ling Baneling, right? Even if it was still pure Roach, that type of Larva loss is still going to be difficult to recover from, but he is going to have a little bit of time. Oliveira has been stopped with his major push. Now he's going a little bit more into that drop mode. I love that he's including some ghosts in case he gets the opportunity to do so. It looks like this won't really get a snipe, but even some harassment's always nice to see, as Oliveira also has a drop into the main base that is also going to have to get the heck out of there. Oliveira, he's doing this little bits of damage to still kind of control the creep, control the scenario, but he might have this next push be the last if he gets into a good position, especially with all the creep being removed from the map.
Yeah, certainly it is going to be really difficult for Serral to find the type of engagement he found before. Even though he did take that pretty decent engagement, a lot of it was off creep. It was a really nice collapsing flank he was able to drop in there. And he did get one of those blinding clouds. Now there's going to be EMPs available, but this is oftentimes the secret weapon of the Zerg, and it can sometimes be a secret until it's too late. The Burrowed Infestor, we're going to see a Ravager going down as it wanders into the death zone.
Yeah, I'm not sure he actually got the high ground vision to be confident about the Corrosive Biles, because, for instance, that one missed, actually. Liberators will continue advancing forward. They're finally taking out, but the tanks also helping out from this little ledge abuse. Planetary guarding the 4th base. Extra orbitals already made for the Terran. 3-3 also looking to finish in the next 30 seconds, at least the attack, which we often say is the most important. And Oliveira's push is here. It's trying to actually get some decent damage done, but Serral tries to take the fight. It's going to be enough to push back Oliveira temporarily, but Serral's going to need more. He's going to need some great fungals. He's going to need some distraction. He's going to need some back attack to actually get this done, and that's exactly what he set up here. 12 seconds before +3 is actually done. The banelings are once again off of creep, and Oliveira has got to split here as he is going to be forced away. The supply is still favorable for him.
It certainly is, and now we will finish up that upgrade advantage. The Ghosts being healed up, so little bio, but it's still enough to hold the position. 175 supply to 139. This is still looking so promising for Oliveira in this game number 2.
I think he's going to get the first map victory against Serral in 3 years. Last time was in 2020. It is looking to happen here as he has a 60 supply advantage. Now 3-3 upgrades finishing, and Serral is running out of reinforcements and running out of time.
He certainly is. Snipes coming in on the final Ravager. There's so little left for Serral. He is broke as a joke. He's got an Ultralisk Cavern coming on in, but he doesn't have the Larva. He will lose this base. He will lose this setup, this position, and he has all but lost this game.
It should be happening soon, but I think he refuses to believe it. Oliveira's economy back at home, totally fine, totally uninterrupted. 5 bases, plenty of extra orbitals, more bases on the way to take the rest of the map. But Serral does not want to tap out quickly, especially when he's got some technology to work with. He wants to use the bank. He wants to combo some infestors, perhaps with those ultras that are finally on their way out. But that's not going to be good enough. It's not a full Marine army. We got Liberators, we got tanks, and we have Ghosts. And Serral is once again on the ropes as he finally taps out and gives Oliveira his first victory against them in years.
It's entirely possible Oliveira's looked at some of the comments where people are like, oh, it was a lucky run, people were playing bad, blah, blah, blah. That might have put a chip on his shoulder. You might have pissed him off, Reddit. You might have made him real mad. And you know what? He might be channeling that normal man once again.
He might be, although I think you could have poked him in the eye after that Katowice run and he just would have smiled at you.
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely. And he certainly earned it. Now, we do see this is not an ideal start. There's no SCV scout. This is very good for Serral. And this looks really tough for Oliveira. He's going to need to pull SCVs. And I'm a little bit worried for how this could turn out.
Sometimes it is best just to kind of accept the L in this regard and not let things get even worse. And so calm, collected is the way to go. Pull the SCVs with the Marine and try not to lose any SCVs would be ideal. Obviously already losing some mining time. But the SCV should be built in the command center once again, and it is. So really, as I said, you still, you're like, well, I didn't scout it. I didn't have something to immediately defend it. But no SCV losses, no big delay in the command center, and the Reaper confirms there's no cheesy follow-up. I'd still take that actually as a Terran.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a W. Oh, nice job from Serral. Barely gets the Spore Crawler save.
Wow.
But with no units going down whatsoever,
yeah,
just lost mining time, and now the 3rd base being denied, and the grenade. Dude. This is very well done. Excellent execution in the clutch, under the gun for Oliveira right there.
Oh, you can see he's actually doubting. He's like, well, I didn't see any roaches, but I'm not sure anymore because that 3rd is a little bit suspicious. He pulls the mules and the SCV away from his natural. Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit, right? But I think in this case, because a lot of other things have been just straight up W's, I didn't even really believe it. I thought Nestor surely must have went down.
Yeah, right?
But then it was double check, and I was like, no, that's a W for the Terran. The tiniest of L's, the tiniest of L's, just to make sure you aren't misreading and maybe overestimating your position. And you certainly don't want to be caught underestimating Serral, especially because he has shown that he will 100% add on some type of aggressive opener.
And that's exactly why it is so important to have that complete toolkit and have the ability to sell that narrative to your opponent, because it may not seem like a big deal, but maybe he lost, you know what, 3 mining trips, at least 2 on that mule. And in the early game, that's a pretty big deal, and it does undercut these little advantages. Still, I do like the way Oliveira is going about this. He has skipped Starport, started up a very quick stim, and is going to be set up very nicely into the mid game. Now, every anime protagonist has that self-doubt arc. Let's see how Oliveira recovers from it.
Roachborn is on the way for Serral. He's still droning. No huge Overlord burst leading to that supply fill of roaches, but I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I see if perhaps Serral does move into some type of 1-1 roach push. Now, Oliveira did show tanks in the last game, so if you're hoping to just kind of get the, like, whoop, caught you sleeping a little bit there, maybe not going to happen, but this is something the Overlord also would have loved to have been able to check if they get a confirmation on the factory add-on intention, which right now is just being used to help the barracks, but nonetheless, that would have been nice. It did see enough to know that Serral can drone, and so he does bust out another round of drones after only literally 1 roach, which is certainly the play here because he knows it's 3 CC into the barracks focus. No harassing units, or not very many, excluding these Hellions. Sorry, Hellions, but you don't do very much.
It does kind of feel like, maybe I'm just misreading this a little bit, but it does kind of feel like Serral might have been holding Larva actually in anticipation of that scout, because he built 11 drones at once, and that's a lot to build if you're not Larva capped.
I think so.
I think that might have been, a little bit of hesitation, so he's definitely worried potentially about Oliveira hitting him with some kind of very wild aggression. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, I think we actually are seeing a little bit of that kind of, you know, both players are wondering, like, is it as good as it might seem, or is it good as it can be? Like, I don't believe it quite yet. But we do have Serral going for the roaches in the 1-1, and I still really want to focus on whether he actually decides to do a type of push with that. Nope. Already answered. Actually, I think I saw the gases before this too. But the infestation pit is on the way. Again, if he sees an opportunity to get enough roaches onto Oliveira's side of the map, we've seen some very awkward Terran losses before. But generally, with that infestation pit, you're looking towards that hive. You're looking towards the macro game. And as you were saying, I think Serral's just looking to perfect any of the mistakes he made in the last game that caused things to really domino effect. And I believe 100% that he can, but I also believe that Oliveira doesn't need to do that damage that he did to still have a very good game for game 2.
No, certainly not. The setup from Oliveira is actually very nice. The fact that he was able to delay the starport for as long as he has means that this timing he's hit with these first 2 medevacs is very early, and he's going to be able to start applying pressure from a very early position. Just sub 7 minutes, he's already got that 1-1 and combat shields online. Now, Serral is doing a good job of staying on top of everything. That's a hilariously good yet utterly ineffective grenade because, you know, it does no damage. It's like a soft gust of wind on the roaches' faces. But it looks very impressive.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
It's looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you activate the prismatic alignment on Voiders against Queens.
And Hydras. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Thick beam. Thick beam is always how it goes. We are going to see the multi-prong start to switch on here. Nice jump from Serral, able to get one of those Widow Mines. Get 2. No, just the 1. But still, shutting this down from an early stage, and he hasn't lost much creep. This is a pretty solid mid-game from Serral and a very quick hive.
I really did think that it was setting up to be a elongated macro game, or it even could get to that 5 base versus like 7 for a Zerg, relentless aggression eventually from the Zerg as the Terran is forced to turtle a little bit. In my mind, I saw that happening in the second game, even as Oliveira pushed out, because the assumption for me was that he might get a canceled 5th, as he does here, but then he kind of uses it to control a little pacing and then move on to the next stage. But then he just suddenly kind of won, you know, with that first big push out. That was a game-deciding push out. And so there's always, I suppose, room for that doubt, room for that flexibility. It could be the setup for a very long, great macro game, or it could actually go into an attack from either side that suddenly catches the other one off guard. Serral does have a lot of creep spread to work with here. It's going to have to be pushed back at least a little bit by Oliveira before we can actually make some magic happen. And he is trying to get that setup once again. Double Liberator going in for the harassment.
that is what, in addition to that push on the fourth, broke the game wide open. We are going to see a big Stimmin coming on in. Nice split against the Corrosive Biles. Oliveira pushing very far into creep. There is a changeling in the midst of this army that sees the exact setup, and that will allow the Vipers to get some very nice blinding clouds. Good jump from Serral, but he is a little bit caught on the ramp with those Roaches and Ravagers. Meanwhile, I think the Liberators are trying to get in there. They will siege up, but Serral on top of it with a nice reposition. Excellent defense from Serral in game number 3. He does have to cancel the gold base. He did lose a lot of creep.
But this was really what I expected from the last game, you know?
Yes.
Serral wasn't totally prepared, so we had Oliveira able to strike when he was, you know, safe to do so, because Serral really was close to having not just the max situation with the technology, but also the preparation. That if you did move forward against a prepared Serral, he would have enveloped you and destroyed you. Oliveira did the right push, and then also the right pullback, but Serral did have to concede a little ground in a couple of hatcheries because he wasn't totally ready to go. But now we have that kind of mutual respect, the mutual like testing right there happen, and into the Ultras we go, into the 5th base we go for the Terran, as +3 attack starts up here for Oliveira. Obviously be looking keen onto that and whether that affects these upcoming battles. That Oliveira, he is not, you know, bowing to Serral here. He is actually staying on the map, even though it's a time in which Terrans really have to be scared to do so. The Zerg could be setting up in so many different ways with those blinding clouds as well.
Yeah, and he's setting up for he's carved out this path of creep clearing in order to set up this big push. He's added on Vikings before Ghost in order to try and push those Vipers away. And this is actually looking really scary for Serral to deal with. Serral is on 1-1-2. He's trying to add on the Ultras, but he is a ways away from getting the upgrades needed to make those effective. Here comes the big attack from Serral. Blinding Clouds on a ton of the tanks. Oliveira, does he have enough to hold the position? The Blinding Cloud's super effective, and it looks like an excellent break from Serral here.
Yeah, kind of moved on in piece by piece, even though a lot of it was off of creep. It was a dismantling of the position there for Oliveira, as he was able to take a little bit of a trade and enough on his economy to say it's all good, I'll be able to remax as well. But that is the type of scary position that I was talking about, where you think that you have a position because your tank count's kind of good, you are off of creep, you're showing Zerg some respect, but then the Zerg has in mind how they're going to get the concave, how they're going to use the banelings, how they're going to get us around, and how they're going to use the blinding cloud. And that's exactly what Serral set up there, so it was almost, you know, picturesque. It was the way that you'd be instructed to if there was a manual. And now Serral is going to get a little bit of time to be the aggressive player. Oliveira's planetary is in his sights, and it looks like Oliveira realizes he's out of position, so he evacuates, loses the planetary, cancels the command center, but loses 7 SCVs instead of 25.
Yeah, good reaction time from Oliveira, mitigates the damage, and even some nice target fire on the banelings from the planetary itself in order to make sure the lings, more lings had to be sacrificed. So even though that was very good for Serral, absolutely, Oliveira gets the most he could out of it.
Yeah, which is really all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Oliveira's supply is still kind of worrying me a little bit. The gas isn't so set up for him. He still has some unsaturated gases by the looks of it, and it wasn't swimming in money when the attack was defended. That's a weird way to put it, but yeah. So it's still a little worrying that he's down 30 supply, but it's only 15 really in the army, and he is going to have defender's advantage as Serral is ready to go. What worries me is that when a Terran has to give up this much space and this much aggression, and Serral really does get all this time to build a bank, to build his larva count, to build his creep spread, and to decide how he wants to engage, he generally wins these positions.
Yeah, and Serral has been great. I wanted to bring that back up about rebuilding the creep in the middle around that watchtower where Oliveira had carved out that one attack path. This is a huge army. It's a nice spread for Oliveira, but can he deal with this? This is so much Ling, Bane, Ravager Ultra. We are going to see some big blinding clouds, pretty big Widowmine shot, but I think Serral is just going to smash right through.
Yeah.
Ton of SCVs going down. Ghost very low on HP. They will just barely survive, but at what cost?
Exactly. Oliveira has effectively been broken into his natural and third base. The production has gone down, a lot of the army has gone down, and he did not have all of his supply on the defense, which is why it was, I think, an easier break like this, but it was because it was attacking. It just doesn't do enough. There's not an actual equivalent exchange here. It would have had to kill so many hatcheries, plus all the reinforcements that Serral's getting to actually do the equivalent damage. Oliveira has been broken, and Serral is just delivering the final blow.
He certainly is. The reinforcements coming in from Serral will seal the deal, like you said, and he puts himself on match point.
Wondered. He pulled away some of those SCVs. And those are the little things that we were trying to bring up during the game, in which both players were experiencing, actually. It's just that Serral, when things got maybe a little more comfortable and kind of the reads were there for both players, Serral did execute on his mechanics very well, took down a still very scary Terran army. You have to really respect that, and dominated from then on out. So Oliveira has the Terran player in what is now a 3-hatch build here for Serral. I'm looking at him to see what his build is. It is 3CC, no second gas as of yet, after all, and that's the solid setup for a Terran. But this is, again, where some of those changes can be made. You can include Banshees, you can go for a Raven, you can go for more Hellions. We could even have Battle Mech, theoretically, although it doesn't seem that he's a favor of that. And then, again, the armory timings can be played with a little bit, too. Is it going to be a 2-on-1 follow-up? All those are the questions they have to ask, as well, Serral, actually, as well, in this matchup, of which he has very little scouting thus far, but an Overlord to the left of Oliveira's natural.
Yeah, he really loves these kinds of, I guess, sneaky-ish Overlord scout patterns. And to the answer to your question, we are going to be seeing the quick starport. The variant that I really love personally is the delayed second, third barracks, delayed starport, which is actually what we saw in the previous game, but more so than that, the super fast double engineering bay. That, to me, is so potent and has actually beaten Serral in the past on this patch, on this map pool. Cure was able to bust it out, and it hits like this 830, 845, 2-2 timing, and it is just so powerful and so difficult to deal with.
Noticing a difference of the starport production, we actually have what is a very old school build. I remember seeing this at a home story cup maybe last year, and then I feel like people forgot it's an old school build, but the Viking and then the Cloaked Banshees.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the common iteration is just going right into the Cloaked Banshees. But the Viking coming out, 1, ensures you can clear out Overlords, even if they already got the scout, you still get the kills. And then 2, clears out like maybe scouting Overlords on Serral's side of the map. And then 3, it does mean that your Banshees arrive on the side of the map with Cloak finish. There's no awkward like waiting around. So that's why I've always done it, but I'm also someone who stole a build from Innovation in 2016 and never stopped.
I mean, if you're gonna steal a build from anyone, and that is what he would have wanted, is for you to never change it.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally do the same thing for 17 years.
Yes.
And never change a single thing. That's living Innovation's best life.
You made me feel really good right then.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Anyways, it is going to be into bio afterward, but the double cloaked Banshee, is obviously changing up as well, the Banshee appearance for Serral, who did take the threat of Cloak seriously, because that is what he scouted. It just wasn't actually true, but he did build the Spore Crawlers, and there's no reason not to in this game. So he'll have the Spore Crawlers, but maybe the 4th base this time around will be a little harder to defend. We'll see what the Banshee's goals are.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Serral maybe was a little bit more hesitant with the Spore Crawler timings, and he actually did only get 2 to start, so he is a little bit like wary of the fact that that could have been a fake cloak. It's not, but it is kind of funny here. Now, Serral, always so good, even with a small number of units, going to be able to find an SCV, forces quite a bit of lost mining time, including 2 mules. Very valuable pickoff for Serral. Ooh, and if he gets this Viking, that's a really nice find, too.
I wonder how many that killed before it went down. 2 Overlords, you think? Probably.
1 Overlord, looks like.
Oh, no, that's actually a disappointing Viking, then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a Viking that its parents weren't happy with how it went. But we are going to see a big potential Hellion dive, but nope. As the Lings kind of run back and set up, Oliveira did not want to commit all the way in, because if you do lose those Hellions, it is really tough, especially when you're down 2-1 in the series already.
Yes, yeah, 100%. You lose a lot of the response to potential Ling run buys. You lose a secondary attack force on some creep spread a lot of the time, and you do lose the option of Hellbats later. But here we go. That 4th base was kind of weak in the last game, but it wasn't a cloaked Banshee, and it wasn't double Banshee either. This time around, that 4th hatch was very weak, as it did allow drones to be taken down, no Spore to cover it. 3rd also not properly covered that time with the Queens to help the Spore, but it looks like finally at least 1 Banshee will go down. I would say that Serral would be upset with the result here. He doesn't like the 9 drones went down, that he wasn't quite prepared for the Cloaked Banshees at that time. But we are talking about a game that is going into 4 base versus 5, and I do wonder if that is going to be enough to really set Serral a little off his tempo and really hurt him. I don't think so.
I mean, he's definitely going to be annoyed by it, but it's certainly not going to break him by any stretch. It will make him a little bit definitely annoyed.
Yeah.
But for Oliveira, he's going to start moving forward through the middle of the map. Serral was anticipating the push on the bottom side, which means he cannot contest the creep deny, and this base, well, it is going to get saved. We will see an overwhelming number of Lings here. Oliveira trying to find a little pocket to get into and get value with the Hellions and really get some good lineups, but that was way too many Lings to ever find that.
Yeah, it was too bad too because he didn't have combat shields, which I don't think would have made the Marines last much longer, but he also didn't have his armory timed out to win 1-1 finished, which is the ideal timing. And if he had, he might have had Hellbats there too, which again, it's not like, doesn't do severe damage, but it's that cost of Serral using his banelings and how many Lings they lose in the process too. Just those little things, but Oliveira, not gonna let that get him down. Armory is done, 2-2 does start up here, and pretty much in time with Serral's as well. Although this is a little dangerous, he is paying attention. Will pick up and get out of there, but as he escapes, you gotta worry about where those Lings are going. Most of your army as the Terran is now in Medivacs, and they're gonna have to unload on top of the Ling Baneling. Less than ideal. That 4th CC, it actually is a blessing, I would believe, that it's not a planetary. It can just lift, and Oliveira can now focus entirely on the defense, of which he will make a defense happen. Tank siege is up, Marine split off, and Serral's little counterattack is not going to find a tremendous amount of damage. The delay on the CC is good. The 13 SCVs are good, but that could have been way worse, I think, for a Terran.
It certainly could have, but Burrow is the name of the game here from Serral, and he obviously drops that Burrowed Ling on the command center. Very nice, but we've also got Burrowed Baneling starting to scatter across the map. Serral is now creating a very dangerous position, a minefield for the Terran player. And if Oliveira's not scanning ahead of his army, Serral has not busted this out at all.
Yeah.
We don't see this often in this meta. This could completely break the game open.
It's basically hoping that Oliveira, with the scan of the Burrowed Ling on his 4th, remembers that Burrowed Banelings are also a thing. Because it does, sometimes amongst the pros even, these things don't happen every single game, every single practice game they play. So it's a temporary lapse, and then once it happens, you're like, oh, right, yeah, that sucks. But then the question is, did it kill 50 Marines or 10? And obviously 50 would be potentially game breaking. For an aggressive player, as Oliveira has been showing us in this series, even when he does have 4 CC, he has pushed out. Burrowed Banelings is quite scary. But if he chooses this game to play a little more of that turtle style, let Serral come to him, the Burrowed Banelings might only be this effective, which is still effective. But not 50 Marines as another grenade. Looks impressive.
Oh!
Once again on the left side as well, getting a handful of Marines. Oliveira, well, he's been warned now, so if he ever does a major push out, he should be scanning ahead.
That's quite the warning.
Yes.
Not often do you get warned by 2 shotgun blasts to the chest, but it could have been much worse. Yeah, jeez. Yeah. Stand your ground.
Couldn't help myself. You do have, but it's seriously, it's a warning that is actually acceptable. Oliveira,
yeah, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, if he's doing an actual push out with his entire bio army and all of it gets denied, he might be able to recover on the macro game. But then, you know, it's still all that lost momentum and lost potential to set up your perfect defense, which Oliveira has really chosen this game, even before the Burrowed Banelings happened, to be more of the defensive, you come to me, I'll move out with bio, but I won't move my tanks. I won't, you know, really commit to the push. I'll have an escape path with the medevacs. As soon as I say it, he does bring the tanks forward, but they are not sieged. And Serral was actually ready to go, but so much off creep. Oliveira takes that stand and is fine with it. The tanks will now siege up onto Serral's 6th base, and that looks like it is going to be killed. And Serral really needs to respect Oliveira at this point, who is, by the way, missing that +3 attack. But if he wins with this push, you won't need it. Let's see if this can do some more damage than just killing a hatchery.
Yeah, that was that looked like Serral might have been able to get a big jump on his opponent's army, but he didn't have any Vipers with that fight. We are going to see a big flank getting set up, but there's the scan. Finds it, sees it with the sensor tower, and checks. I like the way that Oliveira is setting up this army. Meanwhile, middle of the map, the Widowmines will try and burrow, but that was expensive for Serral. That was a lot of banelings for like 2, maybe 3 mines?
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely was. Serral not finding any success right there. Baneling's on the front line will connect with much of the bio and take a decent trade by the looks of the supply, but it's really that run by now on the other side of the map that Oliveira needs to be worried about. He is going to be forced to be even more aggressive on the attack, but Serral, he knows that he's still going to buy a little bit more time, get everything prepared for the true defense. The run by on Oliveira's side is doing a tremendous amount of damage, but Oliveira is not shying away. He's not backing off.
No, he is not. This is the time to dig deep. Now, we will send Blinding Cloud on the other side of the map. Going to be able to take down the tank in the front line. There's still a lot of creep to work with. 1 tanks, 2 tanks, 3 tanks go down. The push will be broken and driven back. Oliveira's got a lot of money in the bank, but Serral's getting it on top of the production. Can Oliveira reclaim his main base?
I don't think that he can. Those Lings are on top of every single unit popping out of the barracks. Oliveira not handling the run by correctly, forced to be aggressive on the other side of the map, has lost out on both fronts. 45 SCVs have gone down. His army has been destroyed, and he is going to tap out. Serral will take the 3-1.
Brilliantly played from Serral right there.